I want to welcome you to this very important summit on higher education. You're meeting at a very key time, and it's the best tradition of ALEC to look ahead to find solutions for big problems. We have four really key areas that we should be rethinking in higher education. We should be rethinking the cost structure. We should be rethinking the way in which we deliver education. We should be rethinking what we expect of students and faculty, particularly in terms of what they're taught and what kind of activities on campus are acceptable. And finally, I think we should actually be rethinking the whole approach to how we re-educate a generation far beyond just higher education, but recognizing that virtually everyone is going to have to keep learning in this age of constant change. And when you look, for example, at the amount of infrastructure building we need to do, both in terms of a national infrastructure program and in terms of disasters like Louisiana, Texas, and Florida, we have a lot of retraining that may not sound like higher education, but it's education for the very important purpose of allowing people to be productive. And I think as we go through continuous change, we're going to continue to need that kind of approach. Let me start with the cost structure of higher education and just a couple of obvious ideas. First, you ought to go through every single campus and all of the governing bodies and ask about every single piece of red tape. Do we really need it? And if the answer is the federal government makes us do it, then I think you should build that list, and your legislature should send a note to Washington that says, how about repealing the following destructive red tape that'll allow us to cut red tape at home and allow us to lower the cost of education and make education available to more people. There's a huge amount of totally unnecessary red tape. And I think if you look at somebody who has really worked very, very hard, such as former Governor Mitch Daniel, now the president of Purdue, who managed to go, I think, for 4 straight years without raising costs. He is a model of what you can do if you're frugal and if you decide that the taxpayers' money and the students' money ought to be carefully spent. I would also urge you to look at the College of the Ozarks, which is a work-study college and whose president, Jerry Davis, is an absolute genius at cutting out cost. Every state could profit by bringing Jerry Davis in to talk about the steps that can be taken to dramatically lower the cost structure, to make education available to more people at a lower cost, some of it just very practical, rethinking the curriculum to make it easier to get through quickly rather than having courses every third year that are mandatory that guarantee you're going to take 5 or 6 or 7 years to get what used to be a 4-year degree. So cost is one of the key things you should look at. Second, you should look at how we deliver education. And in particular, I want to recommend that you take a serious look at a firm called Udacity. It's Audacity without the A, U-D-A-C-I-T-Y. Udacity was founded by Sebastian Thrun, who helped develop the Google self-driving car, helped develop Google's Earth View, and is just a remarkable genius at thinking about how to solve problems. Udacity now offers online micro courses. One of its newest micro courses is a 9-month program being offered, interestingly, in New Zealand to help train mechanics to take care of self-driving cars. You should look at the whole model Udacity represents. It's a direct challenge to traditional accreditation. It's a direct challenge to the traditional idea of taking quarter-hour or semester-hour courses. It's aimed at delivering to you what you need to know at your convenience using the internet so that you have a mentor, you have a relationship, but you can learn as fast as you're willing to learn. And that should be one of our key goals, to get through as quickly as possible. Let me also suggest in that tradition that you look at the for-profit schools, many of which reach out to adults and help them learn much, much faster than traditional higher education because they're designed to be built around the students' needs, not the faculty or the bureaucracy. So the second thing is to really think about, can you really create new models of learning, largely built off of smartphones and iPads, but connected to people as mentors? And can you rethink the whole accreditation system, which frankly now is a self-serving reactionary bastion of the old order protecting itself against change? We can deliver much better education, much faster, at much lower cost, but it requires taking on the accrediting institutions, which are almost universally opposed to progress and opposed to change. Third, I think it's very important to recognize that we're drifting towards a real crisis in what we teach on our campuses and what we tolerate on our campuses. We have an amazing number of faculty members who frankly dislike America. They dislike American history, they dislike the values of America, they dislike the structure of our government, and they rant and rave, and in a lot of cases, they shut up conservative students. You have to ask yourself, how many, if you went to go into the average campus and you were to say to the local Young America's Foundation or the local college Republicans, how many of you have felt intimidated in class? Why should you as a legislature pay with taxpayers' money for some left-wing professor to intimidate the students? I think that you ought to, in fact, be rethinking that whole structure. You ought to make it clear that students have the right to dissent and students have the right to complain if they have a faculty member who is abusing them, blackmailing them, imposing on them, dictating to them and trying to basically brainwash them. I think this is a zone. Do not be intimidated by left-wing professors screaming intellectual liberty when what they mean is they want the right to impose their values on everybody else. Finally, I think it would be very helpful for you to go back home and set up a commission to ask a fundamental question. What do the citizens of our state need to learn to be productive? What do they need to learn their entire lifetime? As people live longer, as they live healthier, what can we do to make sure they get the retraining they need to be productive, to have the highest value-added jobs, to be able to take home the best take-home pay, and to do it in a way which enables them to have a much, much better life with a much greater income than they're going to get if they're trapped into a system which is too slow, too bureaucratic, too expensive, and frankly, not directed at learning skills that help you earn a living. So, big challenges ahead, great opportunities. It is exactly like ALEC to focus on these kind of zones and to develop breathtaking, bold new solutions. And we're lucky because we have both a Congress and a president who's interested in the ideas you come up with. So I look forward very much to getting briefed on what you come up with, to learn about the new reforms, the new approaches, the new innovations that ALEC is going to be developing. And I'm delighted to have a chance to welcome you to this very important conference.